Good defense and making plays, game-winning plays. That game was airtight last night, and Bobby Witt Jr., he hits a kind of a nubber back to the mound. It was misplayed, and his speed and heads-up play, to immediately get himself in scoring position in a 1-1 tied game in the bottom of the eighth inning, his instinct to get after it gave him an opportunity because he left the box fast. He made the turn off first immediately. He didn't hesitate. And then he attacked it and went to third base. That's good base coaching from third base to know you got a fast guy, and the Twins were having trouble finding the baseball behind first base. They were having to run it down. And they made a great thing. And let me tell you something. Don't underestimate breaking out of the box fast and then making the turn fast. I've always believed that had Alex Gordon in the first World Series against the Giants in the bottom of the ninth inning, had Alex Gordon left the box thinking triple inside the park home run, maybe he runs fast enough that the third base coach has a decision to make. There was no decision. He would have been out at the plate by about 3 or 4 yards had he had gone in, if you look at the tape and everything, because he wasn't thinking that. Why would you think that? I remember thinking, hey, he got a base hit. They're still alive. And then you thought, oh, they're botching the ball. He's going to get on second base. Now, he did have the athleticism and the aggressiveness to get to third, but had he left the box thinking inside the park home run, thinking, okay, what if they botch it? Then maybe he does have an opportunity to make it in, because they really kicked that ball around in left field. And that always kind of just, and he was such a gamer, you would never question his effort to play hard, because he wasn't thinking anything other than the ball's in play. Got it down, it fell. Okay, I'm safe. And then he was aggressive. He got to second, and then he went to third.
Yeah.
But Bobby Witt, he was pedal to the metal from the moment he left the box, which was what you'd expect from someone in late innings when he hits an infield squibber. But he understands he has the speed to make it happen. So it was very impressive for them to be able to win that game. Great pitch ball game from the get-go, and then the bullpen comes in and closes it, which is a good sign. They look like a good team, although, Gabe, it raises the question, are they scoring enough runs if they're going to do better than a year ago, which is win a wild card series and challenge the eventual American League champion Yankees and make it hard on them? But do they have the hitting to be able to do that and take it one step further this year?
Yeah, I think that they're getting guys on base more frequently, and we've seen it with the level of success and the level of frequency that Jonathan India has gotten on base, that they're setting the table for Bobby and Vinny and Salvi. I don't think Salvi's off to the greatest start. I don't think that Bobby is. I mean, he's not producing at the same clip that he did last year or near it. And I think that'll probably come into effect later this season, because he'll have a week or two where he hits a home run and he's getting on base. He got on base last night with a double and used his speed to score. And got on base last night due to an error and used his speed to get to third base and used his speed to force there was no play at home when Vinny rolled the ball slowly to first base in the eighth inning. And so I would say last night is encouraging, and Monday night, the two of them combined are encouraging in the sense that Monday you're getting production out of Kyle Isbell, and he has 3 hits. He has an infield single for a run batted in. He hits a home run. And then last night you get your stars delivering with Bobby and Cole Reagans and picking up on a night where I think the Royals had 3 hits, and the Twins had 3 errors. So you took advantage of another team not playing very well.
But part of those errors are the fact that with Bobby
Witt, have speed, yeah.
He has so much speed that everybody rushes. And they end up throwing the ball away. They had in the second or third inning, they had some miscues, and they only scored 1 run off of it. I guess that was Monday night when I was listening to the game on radio, and they left something on the table that time, some money on the table.
Yeah.
If they'd gotten a timely hit with 2 outs, they would have been up 2-0 instead of 1-0 in a game that they ended up winning anyway. But do you remember that press conference the day before the season opened when John Sherman, the owner of the Royals, said, we were really wanting to get a middle of the lineup bat, and they weren't able to make it happen, and they were willing to pay.
There was a report that they were kicking the tires on Anthony Santander, who hit upper 30s, lower 40 home runs for the Orioles last year, and he ended up signing with the Blue Jays. And I believe the report was that the Blue Jays were willing to give him an extra year that the Royals weren't. Now,
also factor in the fact home run hitters and their agents do not want them to play
Toronto's
81
just a better park
games
to hit in. Yeah.
in Kansas City. And
So
you have to overpay to get guys a lot of times.
Yeah, and I don't know if you necessarily have to overpay at the deadline, depending on the availability and the amount of guys who are able to be traded later this year. And so I think if the Royals are able to stay afloat in the run production area, which I think that is the thing that gets understated with the Royals, is for as much as they've struggled with runners in scoring position this year so far, the one constant is that when you put a guy on third base with less than 2 outs, Vinny Pasquantino usually finds a way, whether it's an actual hit or whether it's a sacrifice, whether it's a ground out or just getting the ball in the air for a sacrifice fly. He is one of the best run producers in baseball, and that's why he's so valuable hitting right after Bobby Witt Jr.
No question about it. There are guys who will give themselves up to know what they need to do. There was a situation either last night or on Monday night where he had a guy in scoring position with 1 out, or a guy, on second base with 1 out, or with no outs, I guess it was. And he came up, and Denny Matthews was talking on the radio about this guy's not like most guys. Most guys will just, hey, I'm going to hit a 9-hopper to the right side of the infield and get that runner over to third. He said, Vinny, he's thinking, let's hit it to the right side and get the runner over, but I'm going to hit it so hard, let's see if they can't field it. I'm going to knock it through the defense. And he goes, that's the difference between him and a lot of players. They're happy to get the guy over, and then they go and get back in the dugout, and everybody pats them on the back because you did your job. You moved the runner with less than 2 outs, with less than 3, with nobody out. Mm-hmm. But he wanted more, and he was able to do more in that at bat. And I think that there's something about him. He understands his role, and he plays it to a T. He'll do whatever it takes to get that run in.
Yeah, and last night, not only was there good news at the major league level with the Royals winning, there was good news at the minor league level. I don't know if you've seen this, Neil. There's video circulating on Twitter of first-round pick Jack Caglione from last year. He's down starting his season in Northwest Arkansas with the Naturals, and he hit he's got now 2 home runs in his first 2 weeks in Double-A. Both of them have gone over 460 feet. One of them left the ballpark that he was playing in. I believe that was on Saturday or Sunday. He did similar things last night. Eric Hosmer has been publicly on Twitter saying that if you're a Royals fan who lives in the Northwest Arkansas area, you better get to a game quickly because he's not going to be there long. I think people in Omaha might be anticipating him being there at some point this summer.
Let me tell you a story.
Yeah.
So I do radio in Oklahoma City, and I'm from Oklahoma City, so I take the Daily Oklahoma newspaper, and they have great comic section. And one of their headlines was, top Royals prospect hits tape measure home run in Tulsa. It didn't even happen in Oklahoma City. It was in Tulsa. And they had it in the Oklahoma City newspaper. I clicked on it and saw that power shot. He's a left-handed hitter. Mm-hmm. He hit it so far, 440 or whatever it was.
You had people running out of the stadium to chase the ball.
Yeah, but here is the question. One, they're not doing scouting reports on him. They don't do that in the minor leagues. So they don't have a book on him. If he comes to the big leagues, every scout will look at him and they'll see, okay, that doesn't work. You can't throw a fastball by him. Even a major league fastball won't get by him. He can hit fastballs. He came from the SEC. He was a 3-year player in the SEC, so he got a lot of at-bats against good pitching, right? So it's kind of about the same as Double-A. But we don't know if he can handle the curveball or the change of pace, the ability. Big league pitchers almost always beat big league hitters. Look at what the Royals starting pitchers and relief pitchers did to the MVP from the Yankees. Aaron Judge did nothing in against the Royals in the playoffs because they handled him. So it's easy to say, oh, this guy, he needs to come up. There are a couple of really good reasons, and you've talked about one of them, keeping him under control for an extra year, and that is to keep him, let him develop at the right pace. We saw what happened to Alex Gordon. He came up. He had been a 3-year star at Nebraska. So he had a lot of extensive experience at the college level, a lot of at-bats. He was the best college player in baseball, college baseball. He got to the big leagues. He couldn't hit. It was so bad they moved him down, and when they brought him back, they said, you know what, we don't want him playing third base. It's too much. Let's just let him play a corner outfield position. He's got a good arm. He's a good athlete. He'll play hard. He developed into a really good left fielder, and then he became a hitter. Not the hitter we thought he was going to be, but he became a big league hitter. It's not easy to make that jump, and they don't want to damage this guy by bringing him up. How long did Bobby Witt play in the minor leagues before they brought him up? A year and a half?
Yes, but also he was drafted out of high school.
Right, big difference.
There's a huge difference there. I think that the comparison that I keep going back to for Jack Caglione, not as a player, he's a left-handed hitter. The guy I've been comparing him to is a right-handed hitter, but it's somebody who just absolutely obliterated college pitching and then came into the pros and was incredible in AA, incredible in AAA. And even Chris Bryant, who was drafted top 5 by the Cubs back in 2014, he was a guy who still got 181 games in the minor leagues before he made it to the major leagues. And yes, the Cubs, there was a whole deal of the Cubs waiting an extra 7 days into his second full season of professional baseball to gain an extra year of club control, and that was controversial. I don't necessarily know if the Royals will do that because I think Caglione is potentially even further along than Bryant was.
So what position does he play?
But that's the other issue, is that if anything, he may need to be in the minor leagues to develop the ability to play the corner outfield, because
he's not doing
he
that.
currently
He's
plays
playing
first
right
base.
now.
And if he's coming up to the major league level to play first base, we already know how much of an ordeal it is to learn how to play the corner outfields, let alone play the corner outfields at Kauffman Stadium, with how extensive the outfield is, how the foul line and how it wraps around. And we've seen Hunter Renfroe have issues with that. We've seen Jonathan India have issues with that this year.
We've
MJ
seen
Melendez
every other team in the league
exactly
who's come in has had problems
and
with
actually, a former catcher, MJ Melendez, I think he's become one of the better defensive left fielders because he knows how to. He's had experience out there, so I don't know necessarily if. And
that didn't come by accident. He went out there and worked his rear end off to try to become. He was a catcher. They liked his bat. He was not a good catcher, and he worked really hard to learn how to play the outfield position. Ironically enough, what got him to the big leagues, his bat, is what has faltered.
Abandoned him. Yeah. So. All right, I think we'll be on Cag's watch for most of this spring and summer to see when he gets called up to AAA.
Look, if someone gets hurt, it's different. If Vinny goes down again, then I'd be going, you know what? If this guy's still tearing it up, bring him up and tell him, you're only up here for 2 weeks, relax. You're playing every day. Don't need to worry about it. Just go out and do what you do. And then see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see.
And hope to God they don't develop a book and they start finding out what he can't hit. And then all he hits until he is able to change. And that's how many times have we seen guys come up and have huge 3 or 4 week runs where it's unbelievable, and the next thing you know, their average and their contact, everything drops like a stone because they found out what he couldn't do. That's what these scouts do. All they do is try to find somebody's kryptonite.
Yeah, we'll see. Tonight, 6:40, Royals going Seth Lugo on the mound as they try to win their 4th straight and win the series against the Twins, a 4-game series. That'll also conclude tomorrow before our KC Sports Tonight show at 5:30. They play at 1:10 for the series finale to end the homestand.
How much fun was it seeing Chris Bubich? I haven't seen you since the Sunday game. For him to come out and have a second great, excellent start. I mean, this is a guy who was really effective last year in the bullpen, and it looks like he might be able. It's a couple of weeks, but it sure looks good. If he can give them quality starts from towards the end of the starting possession,
Mm-hmm.
Whether you want to say he's the 4th starter or 5th starter, it really doesn't matter. Now they're just playing. You play every 5th or 6th game. But the bottom line is, boy, he gives them something from that position.
Yeah, if anything, just being in the bullpen last year may have just reminded him that he's good.
Yep.
After he kind of took his licks as a starter on some bad Royals teams early in his career. Now he's got some confidence back, and he's back. All right, Neil. Yesterday we had the show with myself and Marlia. We discussed the national championship, Florida winning 65-63 over Houston. You were not here. You were not on the show. So you've not shared your takeaways from the college basketball season, but I will cede the floor and let you go on what your takeaways from the tournament are, takeaways from Monday night are, and college basketball as a whole.
Well, my wife and I and my daughter took my father-in-law out for a beer and then some tacos on Taco Tuesday in Kansas City on Tuesday night. And so we were at a bar, my father-in-law, and he's like 86 or 87 years old. Great guy, was a track athlete at Drake, loved sports. And so we were talking about the championship game. And I said, well, what do you think about the championship game? It's too bad Houston didn't win. I was rooting for them. And he goes, the game of the tournament was on the semifinal. Houston beating Duke was the best game of the tournament. It's all his buddies were talking about. And, probably that's what it is. It was, just such a shocker. Duke is the gold standard, right? Even though they're kind of like the Dallas Cowboys or the New York Yankees. They haven't won for a long time. It's been a while, but their brand is so big. And obviously Cooper Flagg attracted so much attention and it was a great game. It was a very interesting game, but to me, that was kind of the game of the year. KU, I didn't see their game because it happened the same time in the Mizzou game. I was covering the Mizzou game down in Wichita. That game was kind of a clunker. The 5 Kansas City kids and the coach of Drake, playing for a guy who was at Northwest Missouri State all those years. To me, that was the most interesting story of the tournament because I was covering it, I didn't watch a lot of basketball. I don't know, what kind of a tournament did you think this was? I know for the Kansas City area, because of Missouri, their first round exit, KU's first round exit, K-State didn't even make the tournament. I know it was kind of nothing around here, but so maybe I'm sucked into that vortex. But in your mind, was it a good tournament or a bad tournament?
I think that it was. I think it was an average tournament, mostly saved by the fact that the Final Four was so good. The Auburn-Florida game was competitive. It was close. It was a 6-point game at the end, but it was
back and forth.
I think the interesting thing is that all 3 games, the 2 games on Saturday and the game on Monday night, the team that led at the final media timeout at the under 4 of the second half ended up losing the game. And the team that led at halftime also was in all 3 games lost. And that had never happened in the Final Four before. So I think that saved the fact that the Elite Eight wasn't super competitive. There weren't a ton of upsets other than, as you mentioned, Drake. And the Drake matchup, for as much as people enjoyed maybe seeing some Kansas City kids win, it took at least Mizzou out of the tournament.
Yeah, it was horrible.
And that's,
in that regard, it was terrible.
In this area, it certainly diminished that. So I do think, I agree with you. I think that the Duke loss is the thing that people will take away from it, and they'll probably take that away from it not necessarily just because of the level of a lead that was blown and it being a 14-point lead with 8 minutes left and 9-point lead with a couple minutes remaining. I said this yesterday to Marlia. I think that we will look back when Cooper Flagg is dominating the NBA and say, man, he was a collapse against Houston, because I think Houston was even the better team against Florida, and it took them collapsing against Florida.
I saw a little bit of that. I did see a little bit of the national championship game in the last couple of minutes, and I was just like, oh, gosh, Houston's gone.
Houston didn't get a shot up for the last 3 possessions.
And give Florida credit. They were athletic, and they played great defense. And they kind of they did to Houston what Houston did to Duke in a lot of ways by turning around on the end. The women's tournament, I thought the championship was really special. The team that recently has been dominating, South Carolina, gets beaten by the team that has dominated the last 20 years, and that's UConn. And UConn blitzed their way to the championship. They killed everybody, including Oklahoma, whom I think they beat by 23. But Oklahoma actually led them at halftime. They had to play them up in Washington State, so it truly was a neutral site. So Oklahoma gave them more of a problem than anybody, and nobody could stay with them, and it was impressive. I was rooting against UConn. I was rooting against South Carolina. So, and I respect both coaches and respect both programs tremendously. I was kind of hoping that somebody else would win. I was, to be honest with you, hoping that K-State would make a deeper run. I thought K-State had the weapons to be able to shock everybody because they had the big girl, Aoka Lee, and her inability, for their inability to get the ball to her, it's really troublesome. And some people around that program are like, what happened? Not pointing fingers or anything, but just like, it's a little like the Chiefs. The Chiefs played their worst when they needed it.
Yeah.
And K-State that was their game to win, and USC is really good. I know they lost the number 2 scorer in the country. They're so deep, they were still one of the best teams in the country. They were still one of the best teams, yeah. They're like Alabama's been in college football the last 15 years. They got great players behind great players. So I give USC credit, but that was a game that K-State could have won, probably should have won, and I was disappointed in that.
Well, we're on to next season, and when the national championship concludes on Monday nights, that is on the Monday night in April, the first Monday night in April, it is always turning the page means that the next weekend we're going to have the Masters on KCTV 5. We're going to have the Masters on CBS. Neil, to me, the Masters weekend, I like golf enough that I will turn golf on in January, February, March for the signature events, the Genesis Invitational, usually Pebble Beach, those kinds of things, the Phoenix Open. But the Masters, to me, signals the official start of golf in Kansas City, being able to get outside, and usually the weather is good enough that people can go outside and such. So that's kind of, in my head, what I associate the Masters with is usually trying to get out and play golf on the Saturday or Sunday of the Masters. But in terms of the actual tournament itself and watching the tournament this weekend, what are you looking forward to?
Well, the golf, first of all, I think it's the biggest golf course in the United States, or the biggest golf tournament in the United States. U.S. Open is unbelievable. The British Open, unbelievable around the world, probably the biggest tournament around the world. But Augusta National, because people know the golf course is so beautiful and green at a time of the year that most of the United States, including Kansas City, is not really lush green. We got a little bit of grass in our front yard. Maybe that's my problem for not doing more with the yard. But I'm saying that you look at it and you're like, oh, wow, look at that. And it's special. And we all know the course. You see it so many times. When you see somebody at 12, you're like, okay, he better get it to the pin, because if it's going to suck off the green, it's going to go into that front bunker, it's going to go down in the water. And Amen Corner, oh my gosh, it's unbelievable. And you got the 2 par 5s, 13 and 15. You've got these holes that you've got to negotiate. It seems to always come down to the back 9 at Augusta on Sunday, right?
Yep.
So that the golf course in many times takes center stage in my mind. I have to tell you, I grew up with a time when you had Jack Nicklaus doing what he did. You had Lee Trevino and Tom Watson and Greg Norman. You had Nick Faldo. You had great players who won multiple majors, and they all were there. Now we have some guys who are, unbelievably talented, kind of like Greg Norman, unbelievably talented, and you wonder, why don't they win every week? Why don't they do better? Scotty Scheffler, if he plays his best golf, can anybody beat him? But he doesn't always
typically win. It feels like he wins every week.
Dustin Johnson, another guy who all the other players, including Tiger Woods, are going, I play practice rounds with this guy, and I can't believe it. He can draw it 40 yards around the corner of trees. He can cut it 40 yards the other direction. He hits more shots than anybody, and he hits it farther than anybody, but he didn't win that much. And you had to. I just wonder. I don't know who to root for. This Live Golf Tour has some guys on it that I rooted for back in the day, and I'm like, what are they doing? I understand the argument a little bit for doing it, and I certainly understand people. How do you turn down the kind of money that they were offered? But to me, it's damaged the game. Popularity's down. The PGA Tour continues to have good numbers. The Live Tour. More people watch my podcast, and I don't even have a podcast, than watch the Live Tour. Have you ever watched the Live Tour event?
I've tuned in briefly, but it's not like that's the thing, is it bums me out, specifically because I'm an ASU alum, how many of the guys from ASU have gone to the Live, whether it's Phil, whether it's John Rahm, whether it's Paul Casey, David Pooch, all these different guys. And that's why the Masters is the first tournament every year where they're all together.
Do you remember? Yeah. And in my mind, Augusta would never do it because Augusta is Augusta. But I think for the viewers, if they put an L by all of the Live Tour players on the leaderboard, and then a P, so you know that those guys are PGA Tour, then an E for European Tour, or A for Australasian Tour, whatever. I think we would love it, because then you're like, God, the Live guys are terrible, or oh, look at them, the Live guys are all winning. It would give you another reason to watch and root. Augusta National believes they're bigger than anything, and in some ways they are probably, and so they're not going to do that. But I think it would be interesting. There are probably some great guys on tour. There probably are. I just haven't met very many of them, and the ones I've met haven't. Their money changes people, and the tours,
and they're all getting a lot of money.
A lot of money.
Yeah.
And you know, it used to be you'd go up to guys back in the day and they would be polite. If they said no, they would at least be polite. I used to go to cover a tour event in Fort Worth, Texas every year, the Colonial NIT. And it got a good field, got a great field. And so you got used to going up to guys, and almost everybody was nice. It's not that way anymore. You know, it's just not. And I'm sure there's still a lot of great people, but I think a lot of people are like, they get paid so much, it affects them. Wait till you get big money. You're going to change. I can see, totally. I could tell. You're going to have better haircuts, for one thing.
Yeah, I'm sure that's the case.
You're getting a haircut tomorrow, right?
You're I guess going after me.
So what can we expect?
So cleaner, I would say. Yeah, that's what we'll go with.
I got a haircut this week, and I had to go tell the lady on Tuesday. Yesterday I said, look, Heather, Liz wants it a little longer on the sides and a little shorter on top. And Heather knows my wife's the boss, so that's what I get.
There you go.
I don't do anything. I think she dresses me pretty much too, to be honest with you.
Well, the Masters, that will be on KCTV 5 Saturday and Sunday afternoon, so you'll be able to watch there. We will be back here tomorrow at 5:30. Royals tonight at 6:40. We'll be reacting to that and their series finale. We'll see you then.